I think the biggest issue that I see with this is that it looks like it's going to help renters, and it's not. It's going to do the exact opposite, where now you're going to have landlords leave. They're just going to go to other, probably not even other provinces, just another country.
Yes, 100%. We were just saying that.
Well, the result's going to be less supply again.
Yes.
Again, another hit on supply that nobody is not saying that. So nobody's going to, a lot of people are not going to feel that or think that right away. But then we're going to wake up in a year, 2 years, 3 years.
And I want to go on to the last segment here now and talk about the future. And I think also just finishing off when you're talking about like how to mitigate risk. Obviously, we've seen a lot of people over the last couple of years thinking that real estate could never turn, or it's always going to continue to keep going up, and interest rates, where they are today. Where do you see the future of real estate going with AI, and we'll even maybe dive into some of the things that the government's doing at the federal level, which I think is ridiculous.
I'm going to say that my biggest lesson in the last 10 years has been that while real estate is a great asset, the true key to building long-term sustainable financial wealth is being diversified. Real estate is an asset class, and obviously we're heavily in that asset class. But I think making it sustainable over very long periods of time, your investment portfolio should be diversified across multiple industries, multiple assets, and multiple geographical areas.
So still diversified within real estate, but just different regions, different areas, different locations?
It can be diversified. I mean, real estate has so many different types of real estate.
Right.
And real estate is just one asset class. So I'm talking about diversifying much wider than that. That's been my personal lesson that I'm really implementing in my portfolio moving forward, because what we've learned in the last, since COVID started, that we're one government decision away from something crazy happening.
So true.
And if we look at history and the patterns, and patterns tend to repeat themselves, then who knows what's going to happen. So if you're putting all your eggs in one basket, you're really becoming vulnerable to government decisions, interest rates, tornadoes.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that then, Sandy? Like, you guys have obviously talked about this.
Yeah. I mean, I can give a little bit of my thoughts on where things are going in a sec. I also just want to start with the fact that things are always going to change, right? Always. Like every time, recently, there's some in the realtor world, there's big changes in the US happening, right? For example, and there's this, maybe that's coming to Canada, maybe not, who knows, right? How do we know? Right. But it's inevitable.
And you're talking about the commission structure.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's inevitable that change is going to happen, right? There's inevitable the government's going to do something stupid.
There's a quote.
They might even do something smart here and there, but they're going to do stuff, and it's going to be annoying to some of us at times, right? That's inevitable.
Right. What's your quote?
I was going to say, change is automatic, progress is not.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and
Agreed.
you can choose, right, to get all hung up on whatever the changes are, and ultimately that usually just slows you down if you're going to spend all your time talking about what is this change, how is it going to affect things. But just you have to be willing to be nimble, for sure. You have to be ready to change. You have to be like embracing change as it occurs, and
that's a great word. Just embrace it.
Yeah, embrace.
I think the sooner you can just come to terms with this, embracing it, makes things so much easier. Just always being able to pivot and adapt.
And look for the opportunities in it. That's something Kate and I have been talking about a lot. It is obviously we're becoming more of a rental country. Ontario for sure, Toronto, GTA even more so. Yep. So that's obvious. So how can we, if we want to be in the real estate world, how can we help and support more there's going to be more tenants. So that's a growing market. How do we look for opportunities in that space, perhaps, to add value? And like one thing we've been working on is different ways to help people with financial literacy and help them towards home ownership, right? How can you help tenants learn what to do, that because there's not much education around that, as we know, out there.
Yeah.
And there's landlord community. There's so much push against tenants, and it's almost like a hate thing, right?
It is. And you see it on social.
It's so segregated. And the thing that I get out of watching it from my phone, when I scroll, is that people complain, but they do nothing about it. And one thing that I always just kind of ask myself, look, if you're putting something out there that's adding no value to no one, and no benefit to it, it's just spreading like this energy of segregation between the landlord and the tenant. Why? I just don't get it. So I've kind of shifted my focus personally is on what can we do to fix it, kind of thing. And that's why Sandy mentioned the financial literacy courses for tenants, because my big realization in the last couple of years was that not only is it for tenants, but it's just for people in general, because even as entrepreneurs or business owners, even those sectors of people may not have their finances organized, because we've gone through this when we first started out in business. We're like, oh my god, okay, now we're making money, and then the year end comes and it's like, here's your government bill, and we're like, oh my god, how come nobody taught us this?
Yes.
How come nobody said that this is something to expect, and how do we prepare for that? So
I like that. And I think it's important for the whole financial literacy. And that's the one thing that we actually just implemented this year. We actually got rid of our fast start trading class for beginning investors. And we now have an affordability workshop to help first-time home buyers or anybody to get into the market, to show them how they can cut their mortgage payments in half and understand financial literacy. I think it's so important.
Yes.
And so for me, you're right. Like, why spread the hate? Why don't we focus on a solution? If you stay in that mindset, you can make things so much better. And
For sure. And just even thinking on it from property management perspective, or just attracting, or if you are a landlord and listening to this, who is your ideal tenant? And that's an important question to ask. And what are the behaviors of that tenant? What do they want? What are their goals? And what we found is that our ideal tenant is someone who is an A+ tenant, who's responsible financially, who has goals, who is moving towards becoming a homeowner. Because not that they have to purchase a house, but that's someone who is typically we would attract to, for instance. And those are the people that also would get value out of financial literacy courses, because knowing how to build your credit, why it's important, how to organize your banking and automate savings, how to, ramp up your savings account faster so that you can save for a down payment. Nothing like that is really taught to us in school or university, and it's so important. It's critical life skills that we need to move through life successfully.
I agree. Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw, but a couple weeks ago, I did with Alfonso that the financial literacy for the youth, and it was such a great turnout. And not only was it for the kids, but the parents stayed, and the parents were like taking notes and learning as well too, because it's not being taught in the schools. And I remember I used to think that the school system was broken, but it's not. It's actually built by design.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, do you agree?
What's funny? So I was never a good student. I was like trying to reach the BAM, so bare ass minimum, meaning in high school it was like in order to go to grade 10 or 11 you need a 50 or at least a 55, so that was my aim. And then in university, okay, you need like a 75, and so that was kind of my philosophy living through school. But it was funny because in grade 12, I believe, or maybe grade 11, you had 3 different math classes. the calculus was like top tier for like smart people. Then there was like geometry, something like that, and then there was like the lowest tier of math.
Personal finance.
And I of course didn't make the cut for the first two, so I ended up in personal finance, and this is where they kind of talked about mortgages and
all the important stuff,
bank accounts, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so this is actually useful, and I'm wondering why they basically downgraded for stupid people. Like, I don't know if that's the right, but that's how I felt. Like, I didn't make the cut for the top two, like calculus, forget it. And yeah, personal finance was the one.
It's so ridiculous. It is, and it's sad. What about artificial intelligence and AI and ChatGPT? How are you guys using that? And how do you guys see that shaping
a lot
real estate?
I'm trying to. One thing I talked about habits earlier. One thing I'm trying to work into my morning routine, is just playing around with it for 5 minutes every morning. I have it in my calendar as a block. I haven't really 100% committed to it, if I'm honest yet, but here and there, like a few times a week at least, I'll spend a few minutes, because I think it's a little bit raw still, and it needs time to still grow through. I'm a little bit sick of people just taking whatever paragraph it spits out and throwing it up on a caption of a post or an email or whatever.
I disagree.
I know she disagrees. So give me 1 second, and then you can talk about all the smart stuff with AI, because she spends way more time in it than I do. I dabble, and I think it obviously is something you need to start to develop some habits. Like the number one thing that everyone's default should be starting to move towards is almost every thought or like challenge you have in business, especially like I need to write a website, a blog post, I need to whatever, anything. You should probably go there first versus sitting in your head and trying to think about a million ways to do it. Just ask it first. It'll prompt you with good ideas, but you still have to expand. Right?
Yeah, you got to learn how to ask the right questions now.
Yes.
And you disagree.
I disagree because I consider myself an early adopter of ChatGPT, for instance. I know it launched in December or end of November, and I was actually there day one. And I was like, on day one, I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then it blew up and it kept crashing. And then, they launched the paid version of ChatGPT. And I've been in AI mastermind for almost a year and a half now. I guess since ChatGPT really came to the market. And so I've been using it and getting better with it. And, I just did a training session on leveraging AI for your business, actually. And we talked about the same thing. Sandy and I were driving to work, or he was driving me into the presentation, and he's like, I just don't know about ChatGPT. I dabble in it. And I'm like, if you dabble in anything, can you really squeeze it and get the juice out? No, you really need to get really good at it. And it is such a powerful tool, and it's going to change the world, and it's already changed the world. And, maybe in a year and a half, maybe even less, who knows, it's changing so fast. There'll be two types of employees or businesses: those that use AI and those that are out of business or unemployable. I truly believe that, because if you can leverage AI well, you will be able to bring more value and more efficiency and scalability to your employer or to your business. And you can, the AI, ChatGPT is, you can train it, and the more you use it, the more it understands what you want and need. I've trained my ChatGPT specifically on my mission, my vision, my goals, and I call him he, has direct instructions on what behaviors and answers I want. And it's just been so powerful.
That's incredible.
I'm in love.
So Eddie, you might be you might be divorced soon.
Yeah.
But I mean, so you know what? So it sounds like you've really adapted it very well. And I think, what would you say is the most important thing that you've learned about it? Is it how to ask the right questions? Because I'm still like, I use it every day.
Yes.
But I don't think I'm using it to the full capability. Is it because you've learned how to ask the right questions and
Yes. So before they released, so now if you are on the paid version of ChatGPT, you have access to a bunch of plugins. Before plugins were even in existence, through my AI mastermind group, we've learned that you have to prime your ChatGPT. And priming your ChatGPT is preloading your new chat with very specific instructions. So when we first started playing around with it, we called this priming tool Luther from the Mission Impossible.
Okay.
And the Luther's mission in the Mission Impossible is to do whatever it takes, no matter what, to help you accomplish whatever that you're trying to accomplish. That's why we came up with that name. And it evolved. The priming instructions have evolved. So there was Luther 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 5.0, so on and so forth, because we kept experimenting and adding to it. And so by the end of it, the priming instructions were 19 pages long. And you copy and paste that into ChatGPT to prime it. And you can teach ChatGPT shortcuts like /forward H means hurry up, or /forward S, shorten it. Like, you can, instead of typing out sentences, you can now give it simple shortcuts because you've already primed it with the instructions.
Right. Is it voice recognition yet?
Oh my God.
So you can just talk to it?
Oh my God. If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend. I know for, the purpose of time and whatnot, when we get off this podcast, I will show you the voice recognition of ChatGPT. And now there's these cool ways that you can. There's another AI tool called AI Video or InVideo, something like that. I think InVideo it's called. So you can actually go on InVideo, pre-record your voice, 30 seconds of it, like blah, 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 we're talking. And then you can take, let's say, a blog post that you wrote, copy it into ChatGPT and say, turn this into a script with instructions for me to make an Instagram reel or a Facebook post or a YouTube post, 13-minute YouTube post. And it will give you the script, and you take that script and you paste it into InVideo, and it will create a video in under 5 minutes using your voice. You can then edit it within 5 minutes, like change this image.
So using my voice and using a video of me as well too? You
don't have to be in the video. It will create a video
with my voice. Really?
Yeah, with your voice going over it. And then, so there are so many incredible tools in the AI space that we are using in our business to improve our operations, improve our service, improve our efficiencies. A task that would take 40 minutes back a year ago can now take 5 minutes, and it cuts our costs by...
Yeah. So everything's just going to be shorter and shorter. Have you heard of Jeff Booth?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've read one of his books at least.
I can't remember what the name of it is now. It's something about tomorrow. It's a really it's a good book. I haven't read the full thing yet though, but I mean the whole concept is really, he talks about folding a piece of paper 52 times, and if you could do it, how high would it be? Now you can't fold it 52 times, then you're going to do it like 7 or 8 times, but it would get to the sun.
Yes.
Meaning that now we're like in the large folds of technology and AI, like we're in fold 35 or 36, and so you can't even see what that next fold looks like. Like it's so far into the future, like,
For sure.
Yeah.
this AI thing is going to progress so fast that if you don't stay on top of it, you're going to be left behind, and it's going to be exponential. Like the growth of AI is going to be exponential, and therefore if you don't adapt to it quickly, the gap between using AI and not using AI is also going to be exponential.
I agree.
The growth of our society from when we invented a light bulb to now, again, is, if we compared on the two graphs side by side, how fast it evolved when the light bulb, like, it's mind-blowing, really.
I want to touch on one last thing. We are a little over, but I want to touch on this last thing because I think it's important. And I want to touch on the future of real estate. And as we also obviously just recently heard what Trudeau has come out with. What are your thoughts in regards to how is it going to impact the relationship between landlords and tenants, if you guys have had a chance to take a look at it?
Yeah, they're throwing money around in areas that we as landlords probably don't like, right? Is probably the common theme for landlords. I just had an event last night and we were talking about this because it just came out, right? And I was at an event with a meetup group again with a bunch of mostly landlords, right? Or either current or wannabe real estate investors, and yeah, they can't find someone that's for it. That's for sure. Yeah, in that group. But I think. I mean, again, it is inevitable that these sort of changes are going to occur, and we can't control it either way, right? So you can't. It's something we have to look at, adapt with it, and potentially adapt out of maybe out of the country, right? If you go to, I know you're going into some opportunities in the U.S. and different markets,
Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, like you have to go. You have to reassess what you're doing currently and how that is going to fit if your model needs to change and or not. But that is certainly something that I think, based on my conversations last night, there's a lot of people that are going to shift away from their current model based on not just that specifically, but the stacking of all those different things, right, that have happened. It's
almost kind of like the last straw that brought the camel's back, right? And what are some of the things that are in there? So I think there's like a $15 million fund they want to put aside for tenants to be able to litigate against landlords for renovation.
I think they even say renovictions in it, right? Yeah. Do you remember the other points in there?
To be honest with you, I skimmed through it briefly. Yeah. One of them is allowing rent to be contributing to credit, which I actually think is a good thing, and we're already doing that. We're reporting tenants' payment habits to credit bureau because.
But how much of an impact is that really going to have?
It's not.
If your credit's shit, that's not going to help.
No, it's not going to help. But I do think that rent is one of the biggest expenses a person will typically have on their monthly income statement. So I think it's a good way to encourage people that, hey, this is important. Like, it's not just like you can move into a house and then not pay your rent and drive a BMW, because that BMW will come and pick it up if you don't pay the bill for your lease or for your finance. But
so you think it might help to attribute to these tenants that don't pay to now start paying?
I think it may help. First of all, bring awareness to the fact that your rent can now impact your credit score. Mm-hmm. And hey, we all know that there are people who don't give a shit about their credit score, and they never will. Yep. And then there are some that really do care about their credit score. And so I think it's a good thing. All the other stuff, I do think, I don't want to get political on here, but I think it's...
For votes.
Yes, thank you.
What?
For votes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's for votes as well, too. And I think the biggest issue that I see with this is that it looks like it's going to help renters, and it's not. It's going to do the exact opposite, where now you're going to have landlords leave.
Yes.
They're just going to go to probably not even other provinces, just another country.
Yes, 100%. We were just saying that.
Well, the result's going to be less supply. Again.
Yes.
Again, another hit on supply that nobody is not saying that. So nobody's going to, a lot of people are not going to feel that or think that right away. But then we're going to wake up in a year, 2 years, 3 years, And if they put these things forward and they go forward with it, it's just more hits against the supply and the opportunities for people to build, to create more housing. Like it's just a very, very, I don't know. It's an interesting method, I guess, about.
It's a horrible method. And especially for the fact that they're painting landlords as they're all slum landlords and they're all greedy. The reason why we got into it was because we were looking to protect our wealth and to create wealth. It wasn't out of greed. It was just like, hey, look, they're printing money. We know that you're devaluing and debasing our currency. So how do we protect our wealth? That's all. And so we just decided to become financially educated.
The vast majority of landlords in Canada, at least, are very common. Like
yes,
at most kind of middle class people, right? They're not maybe upper middle class at best, but they're not. There are some, of course. There's the big conglomerates and REITs and stuff, but for the most part, it's everyday, you and I type people that are just out there trying to build some sort of, like you said, security for their family.
Exactly. And this is what happens when the wealth gap starts to get wider as well too. Mm-hmm. And that's just from decisions that leadership makes at the high level up in, and again, I don't want to get too political, but it's when you make bad decisions. Mm-hmm. And when you make bad decisions, it trickles down, and unfortunately it impacts the middle class and the lower class, because the ones who are financially educated can see what's happening and they make proper financial decisions, and then the free market will pivot and move. Yes. The smart money will move to where it needs to move to. That's how it works.
It for sure. And I think part of it is a play on those people that aren't educated on that kind of stuff and aren't able to pivot, and they're looking for, because I mean, who does this kind of bill serve? It's people that unfortunately make up the majority of the population. Mm-hmm. And those people that can see right through it are, like you said, going to pivot.
Yeah. And I'll say this, let's kind of wrap this part up, is that I'm not saying that you're not educated. You're not financially educated.
Yes,
I was not financially educated 15, 14 years ago, and I decided to get financially educated.
There's a lot of dentists, doctors, etc., high professional people that are not very financially educated.
And it's not because they're not smart. There's a ton of amazingly smart people. It's just not their focus.
Right.
And it's not really taught in school. So people live in habits that they've developed through life, and has nothing to do with their IQ level or anything. It's mainly because it's not their focus. People don't spend time to master.
Yeah. Listen, I know my IQ is not that high.
Me neither.
Right?
I mean, me too.
Right? But I just decided to understand, hey, how did you get to this level? And then I just learned from them. Mm-hmm. And I just watched and I wrote down notes. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not financially educated. I'll learn from you. Mm-hmm. Right? So
there are little opportunities out there, by the way, just briefly. There are ways to add more units now that weren't available in the past. If you own properties in certain areas, you can make legal units now where you couldn't before, depending on your city. Accessory dwelling units. There are ways to add space that people will pay for in the market now. There are some things that are changing in a more progressive way to add supply, to add units. I think that's really what a lot of people need right now, is they need space, some way, shape, or form. I know some developers in Hamilton doing some projects where they're very small units, 400, 300 square foot units, but everything's like a Murphy bed. The table that it folds up into the wall, everything. Mm-hmm. So it's like you can make the most of that. There are some things that are being forced to, get creative that could, be opportunities out there in the marketplace that if you want to look for the opportunities, you can find them. Yep. Despite all the negative news, that is it kind of is a bit negative, but
it is.
You got to find the opportunities.
100%. Listen, we went overtime on this one here, but there was a lot that I wanted to unpack, and you guys made the drive out here, and so I wanted to make it worthwhile as well too. So listen, Sandy, Kate, thank you guys very much for your time, and congrats on all the success that you've had as well too. Any last words of advice, of wisdom that you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
I got one thing and thank you for having us. That was really fun. Great to catch up and share. I love what Kate was saying. We're opposites, right? We said that at the start. As much as all the AI and everything is going forward, and that's amazing, and you do need to know about that stuff, there is also an element in everything in life to be a human. And really, I think with all the AI trends and everything going that way, there is actually might be opportunity on the other side of that to be more emotionally connected to people. And when you're building businesses, especially, that is massively important. The kids that have grown up with all of the technology and everything are missing a lot of that human connection. And you can really do a lot as a business leader to build more connection with your team members. That's a massive opportunity.
I agree. 100% I agree. You know, I was talking to one of my agents yesterday, realtors, and she was going to book a Zoom call. I'm like, nah, this one's important enough to go and meet with them. Let's go bump some elbows and talk across the table. I still think that's an important element.
Yeah. And I'll just add a quote to that. It's connection over perfection. Right.
Exactly. People rarely remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
It's for sure. I was just thinking, I know we have to wrap up, but I was looking at two remotes. We have two different TVs, one upstairs and one downstairs. And I've never, ever, because before our basement was not renovated, so it was just used for Sandy to watch sports. So I went, now that we redone the basement, I went to the basement and I looked at the TV remote and I was like, why does it have so many buttons? Like what are the buttons for? Because our TV remote upstairs only has like a couple buttons, a thing here, a scrolling thing. And I kind of had like an epiphany moment being like, when technology started getting more advanced, people wanted to make it more complicated and they added more buttons, and the more buttons you had, the cooler it was. And then we got overwhelmed with that. And, you know, Steve Jobs recognized that and he created a phone with only one button.
Yeah.
And now we're scaling back to simplicity because people want things that are simple. And the same thing with technology. While technology is going to continue to develop and evolve, it's never going to replace human connection. And, you know, sometimes now when you call a company and you know that you have to sit there and press buttons for a half an hour just to get a human on the phone, and versus you call a company and a human picks up the phone, you have an emotional like,
Yeah, I know. You know how many times I said operator,
Yes.
just give me the operator.
Yes.
Yeah. Zero.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys.
Sure.
Listen, if anybody wants to get in touch with you and learn more about what you guys are doing, how do they do that?
Easy to find us online. Social media is probably the quickest and easiest way to connect with both of us. At It's Sandy MacKay or at It's Kate MacKay. So
Yes.
easy to remember too. That's best for me. You can find us on all the social media channels quite easily.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Gary, for having us.
All right. That was fun.